Pranakasha livestream. Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and once again, we are talking today with Birke Duncan. I think this is the third time we've had you on my show. And today we're here to promote the new edition of his book, The Troll Tale and Other Scary Stories, as collected and analyzed by Birke Duncan, right here, and co-conspirator Jason Mark Harris. So what do we got about this new edition? What makes it such a wonderful thing?
Well, Jason Harris and I collected stories pretty much in the year of our Lord 1999. And then the book was published by Northwest Folklore in 2001.
1999, that was the year that the moon blasted out of orbit.
Correct, yes. Well, we did folklore research while that was happening.
Okay.
And then we had the book published by Northwest Folklore, a scholarly journal at the University of Washington, in the year of our Lord 2001. It became a required text.
2001, well, that was the year that they went to Jupiter.
Yes, that's right? Historical fiction. Yes. Now then, the book became a required text at the University of Washington in folklore classes, also at Florida Tech, that's the Florida Institute of Technology, and Michigan State.
Oh.
However, it was missing an important story, and that was the story of the Standard, which we have added to the expanded edition.
The Standard?
The Standard was a ship.
Ah, the SS Standard.
No, it was more like the PS Standard. Purse seiner. It's a kind of fishing vessel.
I see.
A seine being a big net, and a purse being what you keep it in. So you let it out and catch fish that way.
Oh.
And bring it back in.
How biblical.
Yes. Yes, now, Port Madison is an old village on Bainbridge Island, old for the area, settled in the 1850s. It's a logging town. And they had a graveyard there at the time called Dead Man's Island.
Ooh.
There's just one problem with Dead Man's Island. The graves were only 3 or 4 feet above sea level.
Uh-oh.
They eroded. And unfortunately, at least one skeleton became visible. That's when the people of the area decided to move the people, the graves, to a high banked bluff where it wouldn't erode. And they founded a cemetery there instead. Then they changed the name of Dead Man's Island to something nice, Treasure Island. I sent you a picture of it.
Wow.
Yes, looks like a nice place.
Now, the book Treasure Island had already been published by then, right?
Oh, yes, that's where they got the idea.
Okay.
Now then, I spoke to a gentleman who was born in Port Madison in 1938. His name is Norman W. Vance Jr. His father had come to Port Madison in the 1920s. In the summertime, Norman Vance Sr. used to work on a fishing vessel called the Standard. The owner of the Standard was a neighbor, Martin Olson. Martin Olson was from Norway. His family settled on Bainbridge Island. And he ran this fishing vessel out of Anacortes from 1908 to 1935. Now, when he retired in 1935, Mr. Olson, he beached the Standard on the sand spit of Point Monroe near Port Madison. And all the kids in the area used it as their playhouse and diving platform for 10 years.
How big was this ship?
Oh, about 100 feet, I think.
Whoa. Okay, this was a big ship.
Yeah.
And you just decided just to park it wherever.
Yeah, where he could look out at it from his home.
Did you have to fill in any paperwork with like the Coast Guard or anything?
Not in those days.
Hmm.
Now then,
That sounds highly suspect to me.
oh yes. Now in 1945, it was October 26th, close to Halloween. Young Norman Vance came home from school. He was 8 years old.
Okay.
And then his mother said to him that their neighbor, Mr. Olson, had just died in Port Orchard.
Hmm.
And young Norman said, "That's too bad. He's a nice old guy." Well, Norman looked out the window and he saw the Standard floating past his house.
Okay.
Standard had been in the Sandspit area for 10 years. It had holes in the hull from driftwood hitting it. It was a complete hulk, but it was floating.
On this particular day, has anybody gone back and looked at the tide tables to see if it was a particularly high tide?
It was particularly high that day, yes.
Oh, okay.
There had been high tides before. Anyway, they saw this fishing vessel floating by with water all the way up to the deck line. Telephones rang all over the neighborhood. People stepped outside to look at the Standard. It stopped in front of Martin Olson's house. Then it caught the tide again, or the current, I should say, and it floated away out of sight.
Hmm.
Well, a few days passed uneventfully.
Hold on. So what part of Bainbridge Island was this?
The north side,
Northeast or west?
east.
Okay, so in other words, it floated out into Puget Sound,
Yes, it did.
and
Now,
then it went over the horizon.
out of sight,
Okay,
because
I was going to catch you on that because,
they're in a harbor.
right.
It went out of sight going northward.
I suppose it was slightly misty that day.
Not misty, no. No, but it was a low ceiling of clouds that day.
So it disappeared into the low clouds,
I
kind of
think it
ascended
did.
up into heaven.
No, it went around. I think it went around a corner.
Oh, now there's a corner.
Well,
I thought it
towards
went
the
out into
end,
sight.
it definitely went out of sight. Let's put it
Okay.
that way.
Okay,
Possibly,
maybe a seal or a killer whale kind of got in the way, blocked
yeah,
the view.
that could be as well. Yes.
Okay.
Now then, as for the Standard, that was October 26th.
Okay.
Several days passed. On the morning of November 2nd, Norman Vance Jr. looked out the window and the Standard had come back. This time, it had crashed itself bow forward
Okay.
onto the beach at the base of a cliff, on top of which is Kane Cemetery.
Oh.
That's where Martin Olson was being buried that very day.
Hmm. Is that the same cemetery that used to be on the beach where they moved all the
That's
other bodies to?
That's right. They moved the skeletons from Dead Man's Island, changed the name of the island to Treasure Island, and they put the dearly departed in Kane Cemetery.
Okay.
Now then, I sent you a picture of Martin Olson's grave.
You did.
I did, yes.
Shall I look at it?
You shall.
Okay. Well, I do see a cemetery, but I don't see a headstone with his name on it.
That's one of the pictures I sent you. You'll find it.
I see some gravestone. Oh, there we go.
Close up.
Olson Martin C., 1882 to 1945.
That's Martin Olson.
Now, of course, at this time, World War II was coming to a close. I don't suppose that has anything to do with this story.
It has nothing to do with the story, interestingly enough.
Okay.
In fact, World War II had ended on September 2nd.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we were already 1 foot on our way to the Korean War then.
No one thought of that at the time. That being said, I'll tell you something else that's interesting. 11 graves away from Martin Olson's grave,
Okay.
I did not send you a picture.
Darn. Well, I do have a picture of some unmarked graves.
Right, but I'm making a point about another headstone.
Okay.
11 graves away from Martin is Norman Vance Sr. So he and Martin Olson are still neighbors.
Spooky.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, you also sent me a picture of what looks like a pirate ship.
Yes, I'm making an important point with that.
Okay.
That's the playhouse for kids these days, as opposed to a rotting fishing vessel. That's in Bay Bainbridge Park.
This sounds awfully exaggerated. Is there actually documentation supporting
Yes.
all this?
As a matter of fact, there is. I sent you that newspaper article.
That's true, you did.
That was written.
Okay.
That was written 3 weeks later. And that was the news story about it. I don't know how accurate it was because it didn't mesh completely with what Mr. Vance told me.
Okay.
However, that shows that people were talking about it at the time.
Okay.
There's a term for this kind of incident.
What is it?
Simultaneous informatory experience.
Oh.
That means something happens of significance at the very moment someone dies or is being buried or something like that. It's like the clock stops at exactly the moment that someone died. In this case, it's even more dramatic.
The boat starts floating away.
Yes. Even if there's nothing supernatural, the timing is uncanny.
All right. Well, how in the hell can a half-sunken boat float down get caught in a tide and just float, down the beach like that? And if it's 100 feet tall, and by the time it starts floating away, it's completely waterlogged, and I mean, is that even possible?
Apparently, it is.
Yeah. All right. They may need to do a show on it.
Yes, your friend Wesley Ure might be interested in it.
That's true. And if not Wesley Ure, maybe we could get Adam Savage to come to Seattle and take a look.
Yes. That's possible. Or Mark Zickery.
Well, I don't know if Mark Zickery. I mean, it would have to have some kind of sci-fi element to it.
Well, the Twilight Zone is not always science fiction. Sometimes
That's true.
It's supernatural.
Could be supernatural.
Yes.
Well, the only thing I can think of is, since it was now the The incident of it floating by was around 1945?
In 1945, yes.
Okay, I have a possible explanation.
Yes.
It could be some rogue U-boat that didn't know the war was over, and they were using the ship to camouflage themselves as they were floating down so they could spy on the folks on the beach.
Well, it would have to have been a midget submarine used by the Japanese.
Well, I'm talking U-boats, so that would be the Germans.
The Germans didn't hang out there. The Japanese did.
Ah,
There were
nobody
Japanese.
knows that the Germans did because they were hiding behind these wrecks.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm inclined to believe that.
Okay, I'll accept that theory.
Okay. Well, now what?
Now what? Now we can think about this.
Okay.
It went one step beyond.
Okay. It went out into Puget Sound, mysteriously disappeared into some cloud bank or whatever, and returned. Was it the next day that it returned?
No, it came back 6 days later. November 2nd.
Okay. So, was there any kind of shipping lanes at that point? Like, these days we have tankers and container ships coming in and out of Puget Sound.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of stuff going on back then?
Yes.
And none of them spotted it or complained there was some...
They might have seen it, but they wouldn't have cared. They'd be doing their job. To them, it would just be some other bit of flotsam and jetsam floating by.
Yeah. I think it was a U-boat. So the U-boat, what it did is it floated out into Puget Sound, and then it submerged. Then it went down about 100 feet and then lingered there for 6 days, listening on their hydrophones and doing other nefarious spying type of activity. And then finally, when they ran out of breathable air, they were forced to surface. And then, lo and behold, they got caught in the tide again. And for whatever reason, their batteries were shot or they were out of diesel fuel. They couldn't get the diesel engine started. They got carried all the way up onto the beach.
Okay.
Or, well, of course, then there would have been a U-boat stuck on the beach too. So somehow the U-boat must have detached itself from the half-wrecked ship.
Okay.
And then scurried away undetected. Okay. I could buy that. All right. So this book is available on Amazon.com now, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, we shall put a link in the description.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So, anything else we want to talk about for this book before we wrap it up?
Not tonight.
Okay.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. Yeah, we're going to do a more in-depth look into other stories in the book.
Correct.
All right, and we will have your
Jason.
cohort, Jason Mark Harris, back on the show.
Correct.
Sounds cool. All right, Birke. Any parting remarks?
Have a happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. All right. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a week or so for the long version of the show.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Pranakasha Production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta change.